when Phoenix Mercury's head coach Nate Tibbetts joked about DeWanna Bonner being their third time's a charm signing, and casually mentioned Alyssa Thomas helping make it happen, the internet exploded. Those few seconds of footage flipped the entire WNBA narrative on its head. Was this just an innocent reunion, or proof that Phoenix planned Bonner's exit from the Fever all along? Let's break down the footage that Indiana Fever fans call the proof that Bonner and the Mercury scammed Indiana. At first, the Fever's front office thought they had pulled off the perfect blend of youth and experience. DeWanna Bonner, a two-time champion, was supposed to be the steady veteran presence to help Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston transition from promise to power. The talk around camp was all about leadership. Reporters called her the missing piece, a mentor who could keep things steady during a long season. For a franchise trying to turn the chaos of growing pains into a playoff run, Bonner looked like a safe bet. The preseason hype was that her guidance would fast-track chemistry and help Clark learn the WNBA rhythm under a true pro. That optimism barely lasted a month. 9 games into the experiment, Bonner wanted out. She demanded a trade, then got waived. The turnaround was so abrupt that even Fever insiders sounded blindsided. Local articles floated the idea of fit issues, claiming that Bonner's style didn't mesh with Indiana's up-tempo flow or Clark's pace-heavy offense. But the fans didn't buy it. On social media, accusations started flying. This wasn't about fit, it was about finesse. People were calling it a setup, saying Bonner used the Fever to collect her check, keep her stats visible, and slide back into the arms of a franchise that had been circling her all along. Oh, the rowdy was she got there, she didn't play well, she couldn't compete, she'd lost her starting job to Lexi Hall, so she threw a hissy fit and forced her way out. And that makes DeWanna Bonner look all kinds of terrible. The team's official statement sounded standard, but the silence from Bonner herself was louder than anything else. Her only words were, "Despite our shared goals and excitement heading into the season, I felt the fit did not work out, and I appreciate the organization's willingness to grant my request to move on, particularly at this point in my career." Then she disappeared. No goodbye to teammates, no video tribute, not even a post thanking the fans. For someone who had been marketed as a mentor, her exit came off as cold, even rehearsed. By that point, threads were already connecting Phoenix back to her. Fans started digging up every hint of communication between the Mercury and Bonner, calling it tampering before anyone in the league office dared touch the word. Some even pointed to her short stint on the bench and that mysterious personal leave she took as proof that her heart, and maybe her loyalty, was already somewhere else. Each new clue made the story messier, but also more believable. And as the frustration boiled over in Fever circles, the feeling grew that this wasn't incompetence from the front office. It was betrayal. Then came the leaked clip of Nate Tibbetts, and suddenly those so-called conspiracy theories didn't sound so far-fetched after all. The clip itself wasn't long, just a few seconds of post-game chatter from Phoenix Mercury head coach Nate Tibbetts. But those seconds carried a lot of weight. With a grin on his face, Tibbetts said, "Luckily, the last 2 off-seasons we've tried to get DB to come back to Phoenix. Unfortunately, she didn't pick us twice, third time is a charm. I think Alyssa Thomas helped in that a little bit." That last line, "Alyssa Thomas helped in that a little bit," was the one that lit the fuse. It wasn't rumor anymore. It was their own coach saying the quiet part out loud. Every phrase sounded casual enough for a locker room, but together it mapped out exactly what Fever fans had been warning about. A pre-planned recruitment that stretched across multiple seasons. For anyone who had followed Bonner's journey, his words confirmed that Phoenix hadn't just gotten lucky. This was years of pursuit. Tibbetts' tone had that overconfident ease, like someone reminiscing about a plan finally coming together. To WNBA fans, that came across less like storytelling and more like a confession. When you say, "We've tried to get DB for 2 off-seasons," you're admitting contact or intent during times she was still contractually tied to another team. The league's collective bargaining rules don't leave room for that kind of wiggle. Unauthorized talks, back-channeling, or agreements outside of official free agency windows are banned for a reason. Under those rules, this looked like tampering in broad daylight. But what made the clip sting wasn't only the blatant nature of what he said, it was how casually he said it. No hesitation, no media training kick-in, just a man beaming about finally closing a deal that had been years in the making. The stadium laughed, But outside, Fever fans weren't laughing. Online, the same people who had been dismissed as conspiracists suddenly had their proof. Someone clipped the footage, stripped it of context, and labeled it the WNBA's first public tampering clip. It spread within hours, jumping from fan accounts to highlight pages to national sports talk shows. Comments flooded in. So, they admit it? This is the Phoenix receipt. You don't joke like that if it didn't happen. The phrase Phoenix receipt stuck because it perfectly described what everyone saw. A public record of what was supposed to stay behind closed doors. Then came the heavier discussions. People pulled up screenshots of Bonner's brief stint in Indiana, her minimal public engagement, even the way she appeared distant on the bench during huddles. Fans started connecting every dot they could find, convinced Phoenix knew they would get her no matter what Indiana offered. To them, this wasn't about basketball chemistry failing. It was about premeditation. She ran to Phoenix knowing that you guys already had a deal in place to bring DeWanna Bonner over, which is how she scammed the Indiana Fever, lied, pretended that she was going to be this veteran presence for Caitlin Clark and all of this stuff, all of this nonsense that she had no intentions of doing, and then she quit within 8 to 10 games. Come on, man. Come on. What made it worse was the connection with Alyssa Thomas. Everyone knew she and Bonner were engaged, but when Tibbetts said, "I think AT helped to nod a little bit," it sounded like an inside wink. The subtext was impossible to miss. If Thomas, a star forward herself, played any role in convincing Bonner to leave Indiana, that blurs the line between personal loyalty and professional ethics. It's one thing to support your partner moving jobs. It's another if that support involves contact between teams that shouldn't be communicating. That gray area is exactly what tampering laws are meant to prevent. Even neutral analysts could see how bad it looked. When a coach openly ties his acquisition to a player on another roster's involvement, you're no longer speculating, you're confirming influence. Under the WNBA's rulebook, those unauthorized interactions can trigger fines up to $1 million and even restrict future signings. But the league's silence sparked another round of outrage. Why wasn't there an investigation? Why was it taking fan pressure to even start a conversation? For Fever supporters, it felt like confirmation of a double standard. Yeah, now y'all, Y'all definitely orchestrated this thing. This is 100% orchestrated and set up. It's not, it's obvious. Like y'all not even hiding it anymore. It's obvious. This was the plan from the get-go. This was the plan, y'all. She never had any intentions on finishing out a full season, her contract, which she was contractually obligated to the Indiana Fever. Fans were furious. They had sacrificed time, structure, and development money to bring Bonner in. And if this footage was any indication, Phoenix had been quietly planning to snatch her from the start. By the time sports journalists joined the conversation, the clip had already defined the narrative. This wasn't a veteran choosing a new chapter. This was an orchestrated exit. Every word of Tibbetts' statement aligned perfectly with earlier rumors about Phoenix's multi-season pursuit. Those off-the-record whispers that insiders once brushed off now looked like careful groundwork. The optics were terrible. Phoenix positioned itself as the mastermind, Indiana as the mark. Tibbetts might have thought he was being charming, but in doing so, he handed fans the exact proof they'd been missing. 3 sentences undid every excuse about fit issues. The messy breakup between Bonner and the Fever suddenly looked more like strategy than misfortune. The video clip became shorthand for corruption, proof that Indiana hadn't been paranoid, they'd been played. And as Fever supporters kept replaying those words, "Third time's a charm," "at helped to nod a little bit," they didn't just hear arrogance. They heard confirmation that all their frustration had been justified, and they wanted answers from a league suddenly very quiet about its own rulebook. When the clip of Nate Tibbetts hit social media, the reaction came fast. Fever fans flooded every platform, tagging the WNBA's official accounts, demanding an investigation, and asking how a team could brag about a multi-year pursuit of a player who had been under contract somewhere else. The comments ranged from disbelief to straight-up fury. Some called it collusion in plain sight, while others called DeWanna Bonner's exit the most obvious setup they'd ever seen. The sense of betrayal cut deep. People weren't just mad about losing a player. They were angry that Indiana had been played like a pawn. Every time someone replayed Tippett's grin, the resentment grew louder, and the pattern seemed too convenient to ignore. The structure of what fans began calling a max-level heist was simple but infuriating. Phoenix ended up with a star without trading assets, spending picks, or giving up cap space, while Indiana lost salary flexibility and a chunk of its locker room chemistry. As one user put it on X, conspiracy theory. The Mercury were never able to afford DB on a max in the summer. Now she gets her max from Indy for 40% of the season, and she can play for Phoenix and barely loses a cent. That one comment summed up the mood. It felt as if Phoenix had gamed the system, letting Indiana front the money and the minutes before swooping in once the heavy lifting was done. Everyone could agree on one thing. The Fever got burned. Then, you act like the fans didn't appreciate you, and this and that. What do you mean? We celebrated you breaking the record for all-time scoring and getting on whatever the record was. Caitlin Clark subbed back in the game to help you get it because you couldn't throw a rock in an ocean, DeWanna Bonner. She had to sub back in, help you out. You scored it, we all celebrated you, all of this stuff just for you to already have a plan to go to Phoenix. The anger also came from how hard Indiana had worked to build something from scratch. With Caitlin Clark pushing the pace and Aaliyah Boston anchoring the paint, the Fever's system finally had direction. Their offense was becoming faster, louder, more exciting to watch. Fans saw flashes of real progress. Then came Bonner, a veteran with championship rings, who was supposed to elevate that system, not derail it. Instead, her half-hearted play and abrupt departure threw off rotations and created a cloud over what had been a promising chemistry. Younger players lost momentum, lineups were shuffled, and the coaching staff had to patch holes mid-season. From the Fever's point of view, the entire project stalled because someone in another city had been making plans behind the curtain. Phoenix, on the other hand, looked like they'd pulled off a robbery. From Brittany Griner to Diana Taurasi, the Mercury have always been a franchise known for stockpiling experience. And after they both left Phoenix, the Mercury got Alyssa Thomas and Satu Sabali. Adding Bonner back into that environment created yet another veteran-heavy lineup, while Indiana was left looking like development fodder. For many Fever fans, this deepened the sense of unfairness that already defines smaller market teams in the league. Big-name franchises seem to get away with bending unwritten rules whenever it benefits them. When Tippett's voice cracked through that mic, confirming what felt like recruitment long before the trade officially happened, those fears turned into resentment. The idea that Phoenix could operate like a closed circle, selective, entitled, and smug about it, hit a nerve. As the debate spiraled online, Bonner's play became the easiest target. Fans recycled old highlights from last season and mixed them with clips of her lackluster minutes in Indiana. Declining, one caption said. Washed, said another. The frustration wasn't just about performance, it was about the attitude. The same player who had been billed as a mentor had looked uninterested, detached, and almost eager to move on. Some speculated that she had underperformed on purpose, citing that same ex-user's claim that she might have been saving herself for Phoenix's system. Whether true or not, the perception locked in. The Fever had put their trust in someone who was already 1 foot out the door. And yet, something unexpected came out of it. The fan base that could have splintered actually came together. Indiana supporters started embracing the narrative of being the team that gets underestimated but keeps showing up anyway. Clark, Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, Sophie Cunningham, and Lexi Hull became the core names fans rallied around. They represented loyalty, growth, and the fight to build something sustainable in a league dominated by star reshuffling. Each game after Bonner's departure turned into a statement of pride. The chants got louder, the merch sales climbed, and the Fever's social pages filled with new slogans about resilience and rebirth. The scandal that should have broke morale ended up fueling it. Even though Fever supporters never got official closure from the league, the scandal ended up clarifying what kind of franchise they wanted to be. Not the one chasing shortcuts, not the one lured by overhyped veterans, but the one powered by loyalty, accountability, and connection. The Mercury could keep their headlines. Indiana was busy turning betrayal into fuel. And now, every highlight from Clark or Boston feels like its own rebuttal to everything Phoenix thought it could take. This isn't scandal fatigue, it's ignition. The moment Indiana stopped waiting for respect and started earning it, one possession at a time. Phoenix might have scored a short-term victory, but Indiana has the lasting momentum. The Fever's young core is built on talent that can't be bought or borrowed. It's earned through every possession they grind through. That's the difference between building hype and building history. So, if you're tired of watching privilege win on technicalities, then demand for an investigation into Phoenix.